All right, friends, welcome back. This is Everyday Wellness, where we are working toward wellness a little bit every day. We are in the kitchen doing all kinds of hodgepodge things today. It's really too bad that we're in the kitchen, at least if you ask me, because it's a beautiful day here in Iowa. Right now, I am working on coring our jalapenos. We're not a real big spicy pepper fan here, so I'm coring and seeding those jalapenos, the unheated variety, for some jalapeno poppers later in the year. We'll probably wrap those with bacon. But right now, I'm coring, seeding those, getting them in the freezer so they don't spoil or go bad or anything until we are ready to use them. I've also got some bread that I have been baking, got some more bread rising right now. It's all for a church bake sale, and I got to get it up to the church in not too long. So stick around. This is a kitchen day at Everyday Wellness. So when I cut these peppers, I cut the tops off. Then you can see I'm kind of going around with my paring knife, trying to get this whole core of seeds out, and then all that pith inside. So that's what I'm working on here. It is just going to take a while. But yeah, I'm cutting these out. And once I get the big chunk out, I scrape that chunk out, and then we're left with, kind of a mess in there yet. So I use a tomato corer. We have a couple of them, but I use a tomato corer, and I just try to get in there, get some more of that gobbledygook out, that pith out. It's all good stuff. It's just, when you're wanting to have bacon-wrapped poppers, you don't really want to be chunking into a bunch of seeds. So if these were jalapenos, the seeds would be where all the heat is. We just, we do grow some really spicy Thai chili peppers, but we don't typically use those in anything but salsa, throw in a little, or throw it into some chili, where the heat can be diluted. So we were adding something called sweet heat to our chilies and our salsas, but we grew these Thai chili peppers this year, and they've really worked out well for adding just a little bit of spice for people who don't like very much spice. So I'm going to go ahead and keep hollowing these out, but that's what it's going to look like. I'm just going to drop them into the bag here. You see I've got one done, got several more to go, but that's what I'm working on this morning, and I can't wait at some later date to wrap these in bacon and stuff them with cheese and make jalapeno poppers. So let's get at it. So while I continue the monumental task of working through all of these jalapenos, I thought we'd talk a little bit. You don't really know much about me, so I'll share just a little bit about me. Why is the channel called Everyday Wellness? Well, you hear me say, because we're working toward wellness a little bit every day. Well, that's true. It's true, but it doesn't really capture what it is that I'm getting at, I suppose. For a long time, I have battled a weight problem, and I don't know when it started. I'm in childhood sometime, and I've tried a lot of different ways to lose weight, to keep it off. And in the process, I've not only not succeeded with that, I have struggled with binge eating. I have struggled with just flat out not eating very well at all, measuring everything, getting really hung up on what makes supposed food. I've eaten lots of Franken food, like protein powders and everything else, and none of it has worked. And in the meantime, I have been diagnosed with diabetes. I take Ozempic. I have high blood pressure. I have bad acid reflux. And lots of allergies I didn't have when I was growing up. I struggle to sleep. I wear a CPAP. And I'm only 44 years old. And so I don't really think that, what I've been doing has worked. I worked with nutritionists for a while, and we really concentrated on looking at food holistically. We've really concentrated on more movement and not letting my worth be tied up in a scale, and that works. I know how much I weigh. I do weigh myself. The scale's not triggering for me anymore, but it is something that I have struggled with. So I grew up gardening with my family, and while my weight was a problem then, it was never this big of an issue. So far, I've lost 15 pounds. I weigh 314 pounds now, and I am doing things kind of with common sense. I drink more water. I always have a water bottle going. I take just a multivitamin and some krill oil. I try to eat actual food and not Franken food. I walk at least twice a day, and I don't really eat breakfast anymore. I used to force myself to eat breakfast, and that's not really something that I need. I love coffee in the morning. Don't get me wrong, I love breakfast food, and it is a treat when I decide, hey, I'm going to have breakfast food. Or we go to a restaurant sometimes, and somebody makes me breakfast food. We don't go out to eat very often because we grow a lot of our food, and we've worked hard to build relationships with area homesteaders and farmers who raise what we can't. So things like raising chickens or cows or pigs, we get those from local homesteaders. So I know the face and the name of the person who raises our meat and our eggs. I know where they have grazed. I know how they are raised. And I know the face of the people who've not only raised them, but who butcher them as well. So it's kind of a holistic approach to wellness. I have bad arthritis, I have osteoarthritis, and I've started drinking a cup of bone broth every day. We make our own bone broth here. Obviously, we have an abundance of vegetables. We try to freeze and preserve what we can so that we can eat off that all year round. Our children are grown, they're both adults, so my spouse and I are here together with our two dogs who are kind of nutty. You'll probably see Hank and Dexter in some videos. You won't see my spouse, although you'll see my spouse's hands, because Ezra works in a nonprofit, and their job isn't really one where showing their face is a good idea. So right now, it's just going to be me, and I hope that I am enough. I sure think I am. So I know you've seen a garden tour, you've seen us building shelves to hold some of our smaller appliances, and I wanted to just show kind of what a typical Friday for me is. My days off are Friday and Saturday. So a typical Friday for me is really something that, really a day when I spend time processing produce. So I'm going to get back to these peppers, but I thought I'd talk just a little bit about who I am, why we started this, and kind of what I'm doing. Back at it. All right, so we've got just a few peppers for poppers later on in the year. And honestly, that's why we do them this way. We just core them, seed them as they come in, and then we stick them in a bag in the freezer so that when we have enough of them, we'll do a good batch of stuffed and bacon wrapped poppers. It'll be a good treat. You know, it's going to be fall football season, and this could be a whole meal with the bacon and the cream cheese and the peppers. So maybe stick, you know, some sort of fruit or something with it, but that could really be a whole light meal. And we'll keep filling up this bag, and when we make the poppers, I'll be sure to show you how we're doing that. Now, I've got some bread in the bread machine. I use the bread machine on the dough setting so that I can put in my ingredients, everything will get mixed up, and the first rise will happen without any intervention from me, which is sort of nice. So that's almost done in the bread machine. I'm gonna take that out, split it up, get it into pans, let it rise again, and then get it in the oven because I'm running low on time to get these up to the church before the sale starts. So you can see that dough's getting ready to burst out of the bread machine. So I'm going to go ahead and get that out, get it divided, and I'll show you what it looks like once it's divided. Okay, friends, dough is divided, and now I'm gonna go ahead and use, I got a couple of these smaller foil pans we're gonna go ahead and use, and then one kind of step up regular pan. I reuse those foil pans. I don't like the waste, and all I do is dump the bread out onto a bread rack to cool. As you can see, the first two larger loaves are done over here. They're ready to be wrapped, and I will get the rest of these in pans on their second rise on the stove, and we will we'll turn the oven on to preheat. That'll get the second rise, and then we'll stick them in the oven at 350 for 25 to 30 minutes, whatever the bread tells me. So let's get at it. All right, so the bread is all put to bed in the pans and is preparing for its second and final rise. All I'm going to do now is take this flour sack towel. Fun fact about this towel, it's got some history. This flour sack towel was used by my great-grandmother, by my grandmother, by my mother, and also by me now. And the other week I had my one of my younger nephews over and was teaching him how to make bread, and he used it. So that's 5 generations with this flour sack towel, and we just use it to cover the bread and let it rise. Okay, so the bread is covered. It's on its second rise. It will probably, it'll probably take close to 20 minutes, maybe a little longer. Just depends. Bread can be funny, and we have all the windows open today, so that is another thing at play here. So in the meantime, I'm going to get the other pieces of bread wrapped up, and then I'm going to get all of this pepper mess into our compost bin, and away we'll go as our kitchen day continues. All right, friends, so we have some tomatoes in the strainer that's sitting in the sink, getting ready to be washed. We don't have enough tomatoes to really process at this time, so all I do is I core the larger tomatoes, I clean them, core them, and then I add them to the gallon bags of tomatoes that we have going in the freezer. Once we do have enough, we'll go ahead and cook those down and process them into something. So I just did an inventory this morning of our pantry, and we do have plenty of pizza sauce. We have plenty of chili starter, and we have plenty of stewed tomatoes, V8, and I don't know if we have enough tomato juice. I think I'm uncomfortable with our level of tomato juice, and pasta sauce is another thing. So we'll decide what we think we're going to use most and go ahead and do that. The reality with our tomatoes is they never come on all at once, or at least not enough to process a batch of anything. You need about 6 pounds of fresh tomatoes to process a single batch of something like pasta sauce or something like ketchup or pizza sauce. So it takes a little bit to get enough tomatoes for us. Because remember, we're small. We have a smaller garden, smaller yard, smaller homestead. But we are able to do it by a combination of freezing, then processing for later on. So I wanted to show you the bread. Went ahead and got those all wrapped up and labeled. I just use printer labels, like mailing labels. So those are ready to go. The other ones are still rising. They're almost ready to go in the oven. And hopefully I have 57 minutes to get these loaves of bread up to the church. So I'm really pushing it this morning. But we're going to get them done, and we will catch you when we have that bread out of the oven. Bread's in the oven, and I will check in when that bread comes out. But tomatoes are washed, and I thought I'd let you kind of watch along as I get those cored and ready for the freezer. Small ones we don't core. Small ones I just take the green tops off, and a lot of those will either be made into tomato powder, which if you haven't checked out that real quick small video that's on the channel, go ahead and do that. It shows how I make the tomato powder. It's very useful when you have tons of little tomatoes and you don't really, we have a bunch in the fridge right now for eating and salads and stuff. So then we can make tomato powder. And tomato powder is a cool little thing that I'll show you. I'll show you what it is. It's just dehydrated tomatoes, and we stick a couple of deoxidizing packs in because tomatoes, as you know, have a pretty high water content. So we dehydrate those for a few days, and we stick some deoxidizers in there so it keeps the moisture down. Not completely, but it keeps it down. And The cool thing is if you get enough of this, you can add a little water and make it into your own homemade tomato paste. Anything you want to add an extra kick of tomato flavor, and you only have a few actual tomatoes, add some of this because it's concentrated. It's concentrated tomato flavor. So you can also bake it in bread and make some cool tomato basil bread. There's a little olive oil on it. So really, it's a great way to make sure nothing goes to waste. And so we are doing this for the first time this year, and I'm not going to make any today because I have uses for everything, but just wanted to show you. If you're interested, go over and watch. It's like a little 1-minute video on making tomato powder. But for now, let's go ahead and get these cored and ready for the freezer. Those tomatoes have been cored, and those have had the green tops taken off, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to compost the tops and the cores. I'll give everything a final rinse. I like to do that if we're not going to process right away before I get those in the bag in the freezer. Still waiting for that bread to come out, and once that's done, I'll get it up to the church. But for now, I'm gonna go ahead and take care of the rest of these tomatoes, and we'll see in a little bit. Okay, so the tomatoes weren't gonna fit very nice into the tomato bag that I processed on 9/1, so I ended up having to do a second bag here for 9/8, and we're just gonna roll with it. So I'll get these in the freezer, and the bread should be about ready to come out. All right, that bread is done. It is ready to come out. I'm gonna get it out of the oven, get it on the cooling rack, and see in a minute. Bread is done. Just look at those beautiful babies right there. Wonderful. Cannot wait to get these wrapped up and get them labeled and up to the church just in the nick of time. And friends, honestly, we're going to leave it right there for today. I want to thank you for coming along on my day processing and baking and in the kitchen today. And I want to thank you for listening to a little bit of my story. Remember, we are on a journey toward wellness a little bit every day. See you next time.